Today, we're joined by two men carrying one of the most legendary torches in modern thriller writing, Brian Andrews and Jeffrey Wilson, the powerhouse duo behind the Tier 1 series, and now the latest novel in the Tom Clancy Jack Ryan universe called Executive Power. The book dives straight into the deep end, a covert team wiped out in Angola, a young member of the Ryan family held hostage, and a president who is forced to confront the limits of his own power. It sounds like a classic Clancy setup, global stakes and all the good stuff. Gentlemen, welcome. It's so nice to have you both here.
It's so great to be here, Suzanne. Thanks so much for having us. Appreciate it.
First of all, it was really difficult for me when kind of reading both of your bios to think, holy smokes, what haven't they done? So
we haven't gone to space yet, but it's on our list.
I wouldn't be surprised.
If you know anybody at Blue Origin or SpaceX,
we might be able to help you. We're good networkers. That's our superpower. But other than that, we haven't done anywhere near what you two have done. Brian, you're a U.S. Navy veteran, a nuclear engineer. I'm trying not to laugh when I say this. You're a park leadership fellow. You served as an officer on a fast attack submarine. You have a psychology degree from Vanderbilt and a master's in business from Cornell. This is just embarrassing. I'm glad we're not talking about me here. Jeffrey's worked as an actor, a firefighter, a paramedic, a jet pilot, a diving instructor, as well as a vascular and trauma surgeon. Holy smokes, you guys. Where do you have time to write?
Yeah, well, that's all we do is write now. That's all in our, everything else is our past. But
an aspiring astronaut, but other than that.
Aspiring, okay, we would take a break. We would take a break from writing to do the astronaut thing. But I'll tell you, the cool thing about having eclectic backgrounds like we do and being best friends, so we get to share with each other's experiences, is it informs every book we write. We have so much to draw on that informs our writing. So, and then Brian always says that he thinks my bio is fiction, so it's proof that I'm a good fiction writer.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, except if I get injured in any of our book signings, because they're pretty intense. Jeff can do the stitches.
Hey, nice to have that skill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not sure about the risk on that one, but I have to ask you guys, just kind of starting off. I mean, best friends must certainly help because the communication lines are clearly open. You guys have a strong sense of trust, but how do you divide up the responsibilities on writing something like this? Because it can't be easy. I mean, you've got dialogue, you've got
so every book, so we sort of alternate. On some books I do the nouns and he does the verbs, and then we switch on the others, because it's tough being the verb guy, I would say, right, Jeff?
Especially because he never lets me do adverbs, so I get just the
no
verb.
adverbs.
Oh, I hate that.
Not
so
allowed.
It is, our system is a little weird. So if you've spoken to other writers that write together, like Preston and Child, or Kathy Coulter worked with JT Ellison for a while. There's others out there, but I think that ours is unique, as is theirs. Like it's a weird enough thing already. You have to find your own way. But we are very unique, I think, in that we truly partner on every page. So the way we do it is we divide up. We write multiple points of view, 3-act structure, fairly classic stuff. So once we sort of brainstorm the book out, we divide the first act up by points of view. And so maybe Brian is writing in a Tier 1 book, maybe he's writing JD and I'm writing Kelso and he's writing Grimes and I'm writing the bad guy. And we write simultaneously. So he might be writing chapter 1, 2, 5, 11. I'm writing the other chapters. But the secret to it is that every couple of chapters, we swap them. So he sends me what he wrote, I send him what he writes, and we completely rewrite those chapters with, it's a very military ethos. There's total trust. I don't have to ask him what I change or delete, and vice versa. We just do it and it goes into the master file. So it sounds insane that would work, but we've done it from the very first book we partnered on, and it works beautifully for us. We get that one voice that we're looking for because we've both touched every page. But it truly is a 100% partnership the way we do it.
And I would say the other thing that's fun about that, Suzanne, is that, as writers, the fun part is the writing. The fun part is, it's not like one of us has to be the editor and the other gets to do all the fun stuff, which is coming up with the ideas. So we brainstorm everything together. We write all the different characters. So like Jeff's saying, we're switching the point of view characters. And so we get to be in the headspace of those characters. And also it's kind of liberating too, because on your first draft, it doesn't have to be perfect, because the other guy's going to come up with his own thoughts. He's going to catch stuff that you missed, or he's going to think of something that you didn't think of. And so I think it allows us to become so much more proficient. And you couldn't write 3 or 4 series like we do. We do 3 to 4 books a year. It'd be impossible if you were just trying to do, the old model of, we're going to outline this whole book and we're going to write everything in sequence, and then we're going to go through and edit everything, and then we're going to edit everything again. We just don't really have the time for that. And I think that's our secret sauce. It works really well for us. So.
Yeah, I just have to share a quick story. I remember I was I'm dating myself, but in high school at the time. And there was the first writing duo I ever met, also 2 gentlemen. One was named Jim Cash, and the other, he was in Michigan. The other was Jack Epps Jr., who was sitting in LA, and they partnered up on a little movie called Top Gun. Which you probably heard of. So
Imagine
I know
that.
it does work, but I remember Jim telling me at the time it is a secret sauce, and there's an enormous amount of trust between the 2 folks. And do you ever get into arguments though? It must be cool to watch you guys fight.
It sounds like something we make up for an interview, but I swear to you it's true. I cannot think of a time we ever have argued about anything. Now, it doesn't mean that we always, like sometimes I'll send something to Brian and he'll go, yeah, I don't know about this, and we'll get on a call and we'll discuss it. But we set up a system for this very early on. Again, it's that military team and mission before self ethos that is just part of our DNA from our time in service, where it's about getting the best book we can do. But what we set up early was, if we don't agree, we figure out which of us feels the strongest about it, and we just go with that. And then we accept the fact that it can always be changed, right? Like, that's the beautiful thing about writing. It's like, when we're done, if the thing that Brian said he wanted to change doesn't work, we'll go back and change it back, right? It's an easy day. But the interesting thing about that system is it has worked 100% of the time, because we've only had to do that maybe a half dozen times over 32 books. But I can't remember a single time, unless Brian can think of one, where one of us said, I feel strongly, let's do it this way, and we changed it back. Pretty much the guy with the biggest passion is usually right in our system. So we don't argue. It's a boring answer to your question, but it's
I should do
unfortunately.
marriage counseling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
This
think
could be transformational.
Yeah, well, and I think you could apply this to other business endeavors too, because like Jeff said, he said something very important, which is we start at the beginning. So if you change your paradigm from the beginning is, hey, it's really not about the prose. It's not about, oh, I had this good idea. It's about the book, right? So we both have our interests are aligned in that we want the best book possible. We want that reader experience to be the best experience possible. And so ultimately, when you come at it through that lens, your whole mindset changes. It doesn't really matter who wrote what sentence on what page. What matters is that through the journey of getting to the end of the book, that we're delivering the best quality product to the reader. And so our approach to these discussions, there's no reason to be an argument because our interests are aligned, right? It's not about turf guarding. It's just about making sure, is the book the most exciting book? Is it the most compelling book? Is there great conflict in the book? And if we can get on the same page with that, then we've achieved our mission.
I want to see a video of your process. I think you guys need to do a short video clip of times.
I don't know. That would be pretty ugly.
Fascinating.
I'll tell you why it wouldn't be fascinating. It would be a lot like watching your 7-year-old run around in the backyard, because there's no real amazing process to any of it. We don't outline. It's just like 2 kids coming up with a great idea. But I was going to say that the best analogy for our system is parenting. Like me and my wife and Brian and Karen, it's not like I take care of 2 of them and she takes care of 2 of them. We raise each child together, and there's no ownership and there's no, oh, I was right or whatever. We just talk about what's the best thing for this kid. It's a selfless act. And that's how we approach the books, to Brian's point. It's about the best book. And I don't care. We don't care who wrote what, but also, this sounds again made up for an interview, but half the time I don't remember who wrote what. Like, because we both touch every word, my wife will be like, oh, you wrote that. And I'll be like, I don't know. Maybe I did. I really don't remember. So when you approach it that way and it really is a team effort, it's actually pretty easy.
Yeah. You guys have written books outside the Tom Clancy franchise. So I wonder, I'm sure everybody asked this, but What is the difference when you're writing something that carries such a brand with it already? Tom Clancy was really known for like how in depth he would get in explaining sort of the technical processes or the weapon systems or whatever it might be. Do you have to sort of shift gears mentally to go from writing your own books to doing something like a Tom Clancy novel?
I think, okay, first of all, it's a great question. And it's something that we thought a lot about when we started the Clancy project. You have a canon of work written by the Grandmaster who, you could make the argument that he launched the military thriller genre with Hunt for Red October. And Jeff can tell you the story about Tom Colgan asking us to do the book and what he said. But I think the way we approach it is there's this amazing canon of work that came before us, and we want to honor that canon. And so you try to make sure that your storytelling approach isn't discordant with what Clancy did. But also remember, we also come after Mark Greaney and Mark Cameron. So we're not the first people to take on, Jack Ryan and the family business of protecting America. So, we're going to bring our own slant, our own take to it. And as long as we don't sort of veer off the road and do something that would not be in line, not in keeping with the characters and the way they behave. Like, we could never turn Jack Ryan into a sociopath because that's not who he is. We know we have these guardrails. As long as we stay inside those guardrails and tell a great story, then I think we're honoring the work.
And I think that it's not as hard as it might sound for a couple reasons. One, Tom Colgan, the editor at Penguin Random House, who has been doing Clancy since he worked with Clancy. He is the subject matter expert. He's read and edited every book. And so we have this tremendous resource. We can send stuff to him and go, what do you think about this? And we do that. Like, what do you think about this? And sometimes he'd be like, oh, I love it. And sometimes he'd be like, well, you might want to maybe shift a little bit be for the reasons that you're saying. And the other advantage we have is that we're huge fans of the books, right? Like, we grew up on Clancy. Brian can tell you stories about, being on a fast attack submarine, reading Hunt for the Red October as a young naval officer. So we are huge fans of the work. Do the characters feel as intimate to me as, Chunk in Sons of Valor or Dempsey in Tier 1? No, because those are our babies. But I know them well enough to write them, I think, is the way I would say it.
Yeah, which is pretty special. I mean, I think most of us in the world just know them well enough to keep tuning in and watching them or reading the books as they come out. Let's talk for just a minute about what you've done with this one here, because this really pushes the Ryan franchise into Africa, which is a first for recent installments of this. You're also kind of focusing on different characters in the Ryan family. So I'm curious, are we seeing now sort of a bridge to the next generation of the Ryan family here?
Well, for sure, it's what we were going for. So one of the when we were asked to do Act of Defiance, the task was to write. That was the book that dropped on the 40th anniversary for Hunt for the Red October, and we wrote, Brian being a submarine officer and me working with the SEAL teams. We wanted to write a book that sort of returned to those roots and honored that book. And the challenge is, over the decades, 40 years, Jack Ryan's now the president of the United States. Okay, so he's not fast roping into a hot LZ. He's not kicking any doors in, right? Like, he's not going to go aboard the submarine. And so how could we recapture that dog with a bone, fish out of water thing? And that's how we came up with the idea of Katie. So our initial pivot to Katie, who had not been written about since she was a child, and making her an intelligence officer and sort of an analogy for the old Jack Ryan when he was young, just gave us the ability to do that. Once we wrote her, and Kyle was in that book briefly as well, we realized we had something kind of special to what you're saying, this generational thing. So now Brian loves to talk about the TV show Blue Bloods, if you're a fan. Blue Bloods, what made that magic wasn't the crime they solved each week. It was that it was a family of people who were dedicated to a cause and how that relationship affected their work. And so we saw this opportunity to do the same thing in the Ryan series. You got Jack as the president. You've got Katie out there on the pointy tip, doesn't want to be, but is. You've got Jack Jr. in his own series kicking indoors. And then we have Kyle in this book. And so this was an opportunity to sort of flesh out relationship and character arcs that you can't do otherwise if you don't have that family dynamic. So handing off to a new generation allows us to keep a Ryan in the fight because there's only so much a president can do, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm wondering too. I mean, you've got sort of Jack Ryan television series now, which I'm assuming you guys watch that. How are all of these things intertwined for those of us who sort of don't know?
Yeah, I think it is a challenge for the viewer slash reader, this constant rebooting of IP, rebooting, recycling, reimagining. And so I think the easiest way to explain it is that, at least in the book series, like Jeff said, there is continuity from the first book, Red October, which came out in 1984, until now. So we have 40 years of canon there. And the authors that have written in that series, we've kept it pretty consistent. There's some issues with time. Time is sort of standing still. Jack Ryan is the president. We never say how many terms. You could imagine it's all still happening in his first term, and these are just things happening month by month. But what is consistent is that it's the same Jack Ryan who we saw in Hunt for Red October. Everything that happened to him leads up to the guy that we're writing about. The television series with John Krasinski is a reboot. You're reimagining Jack Ryan in the modern era, doing the same sorts of things that Jack Ryan did in the movies, but it's a whole new thing. And so, yeah, you have to say, as we have readers who are also TV watchers, and I think that one of the things that you learn the longer you're in this business is that the viewers and readers are smart. They get it. They can have their separate buckets. But I will say one thing that is a little tricky. We all are human and we all have imperfect memories. And for example, the movie Hunt for Red October changed some things from the book. And it's very easy to confound in your mind what was in the movie, what was in the book. And so when we wrote Act of Defiance, we had to sit down and we were saying, all right, we're actually playing to people who have imperfect memories of the book and the movie. They're confounding these things. So we actually picked a lane right down the middle. And some of the Easter eggs and some of the callbacks are to the movie and some are to the book, because in the book, Jack Ryan never went on the Dallas.
Interesting. Yeah. So now you've either created the best trivia night at your local bar ever, or like you've really given the nerds among us like sort of a quest now to go and figure out.
Go on your quest.
Yeah,
that's awesome. And the way you have to ask it is what's the name of the submarine that Jack Ryan went on in the book Hunt for the Red October? And then they'll come up with the Dallas. You say, no, the answer is no submarine. He went on no submarine in the book. That was only in the movie. Yeah, that'll be fun.
Oh my God.
I'm doing that later today, Susan.
I was going to say, I have a whole host of ideas for my next weekend now. This book opens also with sort of an ambush, without giving away too much, of course, because I want people to read it. It's fantastic. But an ambush on a U.S. intelligence team that's in Angola. And I'm wondering, when you're thinking about writing a scene like this, how much are you thinking about it tactically versus emotionally? Because you two must be really good at both. And a lot of authors aren't good. They have a strength in one or the other. How does that happen?
I think it's 50-50 to answer the first part of the question. And I think the reason it's 50-50 is because we are been there, done that guys. And so I don't think it's possible to separate those two things. The emotional impact of combat and the emotional toll of combat on the human mind is a very, very real thing. And so I don't think that we consciously set out to set up certain emotional pieces in that action. I think it comes out naturally because we've been in those situations and felt the stress of those types of moments. And we have friends that are out there doing that still. We've buried teammates, we've consoled widows. Like, we know and understand. And so it doesn't take a lot of volition to put that into the writing, if that makes sense. I'm not sure if I'm phrasing this well, but so I think that you need to have the exciting action tactics, but all of our books, every single book we've ever written, focuses mostly on the toll that has on humans, what effect it has on people and their relationships and their families. And so doing that in this was pretty easy, and just sort of like riding a bike. It's kind of what we do, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and you find, you see it woven into the opening sequence that there's history even between these guys that are on the same team. I mean, they're like picking on each other, right? And like one guy's just kind of annoyed that the other guy has these nicknames for him. And you know, they're doing their jobs, but they're also like living their lives. And I think that's an important thing too. I remember you'd be on a stressful watch and you're doing your job, and you're like, but I can't wait to be off watch because I want to go back to like being me for a little bit, you know, I need some downtime. And I think that's really, we try to reflect that humanity of operations in our books. We're not cyborgs, we're not Terminators, we're professionals, but we're still human beings. And so you bring all of your emotional baggage and whatever's going on in your personal life to the mission, and you have to compartmentalize and set that aside. But the clock is still ticking and those feelings are still real. So, you know, sometimes those things come out, and we feel like that's one of the things I think, and so happy to hear you compliment us on that. It's one of the things we do feel like sets us apart as storytellers, is that you get a 360-degree perspective on the character as opposed to just this sort of, you know, single take.
Yeah, not everyone has that skill. It's nice to have a team. Do you guys have nicknames for each other?
Not that we will share publicly.
I was gonna say,
Oh,
not that
and
I'm
also-
aware of. I'm sure he has a lot for me.
And
that I
also
don't
not
want to
that I
know.
want Brian to know about. So
Yeah.
frankly.
I was going to say we should be interviewing your wives, because I bet your wives know all the secrets. That's where
My
all the value
nickname,
is.
his
right
nickname for me is that jackass in Kansas. And my nickname
That would be
dumbass in Florida.
Suzanne, that would be the coolest interview ever, to get Wendy and Karen and
Yes.
like talk about the process of writing these books from their perspective. I would
Oh my gosh.
I would listen
want
to
do
that
it though.
over and over and over.
I want to meet Wendy and Karen, and if you talk to anybody else, I'll be upset. They'll hurt my feelings. But that would be so fantastic.
Wouldn't that be fun?
It would be so true. And you know,
Definitely. So much stress
yeah.
on them because they'd have to catch up, because they always say we write our books faster than they can read them now.
well,
Yeah.
it's 3 to 4 a year. I can understand that, and kids on top of it. So
Yeah.
yeah, I totally get that. Oh, we'd have fun. Let me just ask you both, as we kind of think about wrapping up here. You know, everybody writes today with an eye toward sort of Hollywood. I mean, it's hard to think about a Tom Clancy movie that isn't already sort of like made for a movie or a television series or something. And you've done other work as well. How are you kind of like incorporating that into your new business together? Like, is this sort of, you know, kind of a media empire now?
Hope so. So yeah, thank you for asking that question, because if you've been following us, you see that we now are heading up an imprint for Blackstone, and that we've got a lot going on with Blackstone. Our relationship with Blackstone is amazing and unique. We love Josh Stanton, the CEO of Blackstone Publishing. And what we love about him most is that he shares our storytelling philosophy, which is that we live in a world now where if you really want to share your stories globally, you have to share it in multiple buckets. There are people that read books and they read a book a week. There are people that don't read a book in 10 years, but they still consume stories in television or film or video games or whatever it is. And so a few years ago, probably 5 years ago, 6 years ago, Brian and I had a conversation about where we wanted to go. And we realized we wanted to be multimedia storytellers. We want to adapt our work into film and television. We have other stories that maybe should only be told in film and television. So Josh Stanton and Blackstone were amazing in that they have afforded us that opportunity. We have a business relationship with them now. Our contract with them requires us to write 3 or 4 books a year, obviously, but it also, by contract, we create at least close to a half a dozen pieces of short form IP that are designed only to be shopped in Hollywood, and then they become novels after the sale. So I won't mention the name of it because the announcement hasn't come out yet, but we just closed a deal with A&E Studios for a television series that we're developing that is going to be a really exciting series of novels, but none of those novels have been written yet because we did it as a short form, short story treatment. And so we have a lot going on in both of those universes right now. We actually have close to 24 projects in various stages of development for film and television. Some of them, we're executive producers on everything, but some of them we write, some of them we're not the best people to write, and we help find the right writers. But it's been really fun and educational to do that. And we've had the opportunity to do some of our favorite work. So Tier 1, which is our tentpole series, the 9th book just came out last week, and the 10th book comes out next July. That's been set up with Legendary Television for a TV series with Peter Johnson and Marcus Blakely attached to produce. So that's exciting. And then we have some films and stuff like that as well. So we don't really approach storytelling from a, let's write something for this, but we come up with an idea with that 7-year-olds in the backyard model that we use for storytelling. And then we go, where would this fit? And we adapt it in that direction, knowing that there's going to be crossover.
Yeah. So Brian, what's next for you two?
So sort of piggybacking on that, because we have about, I don't know, 12.5 of these short stories that are designed, they're all hooks. They're all just, sort of a what if this thing happened. And we have great flexibility so we can cover all kinds of different topics because they're not tied to particular book series. So we've had all these things sort of keeping them to ourselves, and now we're at the point where we're ready to share them. So we're really excited to announce that we're going to be releasing a series of short stories, one a month when a book is not coming out. So like there's a book out two books out this month, The Adversary and the Clancy book. But next month, our first one of these shorts is going to drop. It's called First Ranger. And it's about Thomas Knowlton, who was the first Army Ranger, essentially. The father of U.S. Special Forces, recruited by Washington to create Special Forces unit during the Revolutionary War. And so that's going to be released on Audible and in Kindle. And then one per month coming out over the next year under our new imprint, AWE. So we're so excited about that. And here's the fun thing. If you're a listener and a fan and you hear one of these shorts or you buy the Kindle and you're like, I'd like that one to be adapted into a full-length novel, then just send us an email, because that's kind of what we're doing here is we're letting the fans decide, where does Andrews and Wilson go next? What are we going to turn into a book?
That's so cool. Well, I guarantee you, my husband, who's a former Army Ranger, is going to be the first one lined up for all of that. So I think I can imagine the dedication and the loyalty of the fans that you two, particularly with your backgrounds, have developed. And I'm really excited to see where you go next. Brian Andrews, Jeffrey Wilson, thanks so much for taking a few minutes to stop and chat with us here at the Cypher Brief. It's really fun, and I'm looking forward to our next interview when your next project comes out, which should be in a couple of weeks, right?
Yeah, right. We'll come on anytime you want us. We don't want to saturate people and get bored, but get them bored with us. But anytime you want to have us, you let us know. We'd be delighted to come back. This was a lot of fun.
A lot of fun, definitely. I feel like we've just seen the tip of the iceberg from you all, although you've been busy for a long time. So I'm excited to dig in. Thank you both so much. Congratulations on the book, Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan novel called Executive Power. Thank you both so much. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks. Great
Thank
interview.
You.